guests for
by clicking the link in the stream's description. The professor wants to hear from you.
Beginnings on the cusp. Not too old to adjust. Old dog, new tricks. Remember, I was just a pup. Something dirty in my cup. Clean soul, good karma.
Yeah. Woo! Woke up with a vision. It's Professor Bear's day. Ruling the game, coming hard, paving his way. Thoughtful and smart, yeah, the wisdom of math. In a world full of shadows, he's breaking the cap.
And welcome and thank you again for showing up. I am Professor Bear, and thank you for joining Bear's Thoughts. And with me today is a very, very special young lady that I had the pleasure of meeting in Kentucky and wanted to learn more about her and her love for wrestling as I have love for wrestling. So let me introduce our guest tonight is Calamity Jayne. Jayne, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Professor Bear, it is a tremendous honor to be on your show, to be associated with the Wrestling Society Network, and we have so many mutual friends that are associated with wrestling. And this tri-state area, I feel like, is just absolutely hot for professional wrestling, for independent wrestling. I'm just so happy to be a part of it, man. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me on tonight.
No, thank you for joining me. Like I said, we got to meet in a few different shows in Kentucky. And one of the first things I thought when I saw you and start seeing you talk to people and stuff, I was like, oh my God, she knows wrestling. So of course, me being my curious self with any wrestling fan is, how did it start for you?
Gosh, so imagine, if you will, so I was born in '86. So like every exposure to wrestling for me was like super early '90s, even maybe late '80s. So you're talking about the golden era of WWF. I'm going to say WWF. If that's the F word, that's fine. But man, I just remember there were so many great bouts and so many great things going on at the time. And Andre and Hulk and the Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels and Sensational Sherry. There's just so many awesome things that were going on at that time in wrestling that I eventually would end up being a part of, but had no idea that I would be a part of growing up. So that was the indoctrination, I guess you could say. And then heavily in the Attitude Era, all the way up until about the late 2000s, mid 2000s. And then it kind of peaked off when like they had Lita and Kane involved in a romantic relationship that was kind of new for me to process. And I stepped away from wrestling at that point, because for me, that was taking two of the most talented people that were on the roster, Glenn Jacobs, aka Kane, and Lita, and then taking them and subjecting them to basically a pregnancy storyline where Snitsky punted the baby and I was out. You could not have told me anything else, man. I was out at that point.
I could definitely understand because, oh yeah, there was some trying times.
It was rough. And and because of it, I missed the entire Ruthless Aggression era, which I'm told, and I'll have to go back and you guys can make suggestions for me. I'm told that was, there were certain matches during that time that were just phenomenal that you can't miss. But man, if this makes me a bad wrestling fan, like I can't tell you about them. I can tell you everything about, 2000s and before. And then I could tell you everything about 2022 and then forward. And then that's it. So I have a huge gap.
Well, and please forgive me because I should have started the show this way, and it's my mind, not my heart. But definitely, we had a major loss in wrestling with Sabu passing away.
Man.
And definitely want to give my condolences to his family, friends, and all the wrestling fans of him. Do you have any favorite Sabu moments that you would like to talk about?
I was just, at the time, I was a teenage girl when Sabu was involved in ECW, and we used to have what we called center of town dances. And it was in Georgetown, Kentucky. Shout out to anybody that's from Scott County, Kentucky. And they used to have what they called center of town dances, and they were dreadfully boring, but they had a huge big screen TV where some of the people that helped run the dances would watch ECW pay-per-views while they were working. So there was like a little cluster of us that would come in there and they would watch Sabu, Iceman, all these ECW greats in these events. And that was the highlight of the dance for me because I would watch them with my brother at home and we would record them on VCR tapes. And there were several times where we got in trouble because we recorded over something or a movie that my mom wanted to record. And we recorded over it with ECW or WWF pay-per-views. And they hated that. But I mean, to me, that was like the highlight because that was so controversial, like those hardcore matches at the time. That was like, can't believe we're watching this. Like, we're not supposed to be involved in this. And that was just so fun and so enjoyable for me at the time.
That's good. Definitely another quick thank you to Sabu for helping all us wrestling fans, for the people who got into wrestling because of him, seeing the different styles of wrestling, and one of the few individuals that actually hit all the major wrestling promotions. He definitely will never be forgotten, and his memory will definitely live on.
Absolutely. And I think that what's really great about Sabu is not only was he known for just getting in there and being he was a hardcore wrestler at the time. That's all that you called it. You called it a hardcore wrestler, and that was it. Him, the Funks, Iceman. And he was instrumental above and beyond to that wrestling scene at that time. And even before then and even after then. And it breaks my heart to an extent that I don't really feel like he got his dues while he was here. It's kind of like a Vincent Van Gogh situation. When somebody doesn't get their dues while they're here, it breaks your heart because you want to see somebody get that recognition. And Sabu is definitely somebody that I don't think got the recognition while he was here, but I absolutely hope that between wrestling fans across the world that we bring attention to how wonderful and how solid of a performer and entertainer that he was.
Yeah, I definitely. That's the one thing. As much as I um, discuss about Hall of Fames and certain people not in it and everything, the truth of the matter is not everybody will be able to get in a Hall of Fame when they're alive. So the best thing we always can do is just celebrate what they did for the sport and show that their memories will live on. So I definitely know that they will do that with Sabu because of everything he's done.
Absolutely.
So my another question for me to ask you is who got you started in wrestling?
And if there's anybody that I have to thank, it's my older brother. I was born in '86. My older brother is about 9 years older than me. And if it wasn't for him being interested in wrestling as much as he was and play fighting with me as much as he did, and us just forget the language, but whooping each other's asses with pillows and I mean going all out. Um, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I'm so thankful that I'm able to do what I'm doing. And at the time, it was just a hobby. It was just an enjoyment. And I went through and I watched and I tried to follow as much as possible up until the Attitude Era. Attitude Era for me was like absolute peak. I was obsessed with it. I was in high school and you could not get me away from Attitude Era wrestling. And then it was like some of the writing, and as a writer, and now that I do that professionally, it's really difficult for me to like watch some of those skits, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know. So I did, like I said, I stepped away from that for a while, but then I came back to it, and I got out of a really terrible relationship and marriage to my daughter's father, and he was not a wrestling fan whatsoever. But then to kind of reunite with wrestling after so long, like if you pinpoint the Snitsky's baby punting, and then you fast forward to now, roughly that's about how long I was out of wrestling, and I'm so glad to be back in it because I've met incredible people, and I'd never been involved in the independent scene at all prior to then, aside from maybe two, I guess you'd call them dark matches now, but I had been involved in like some backyard matches in Kentucky at the time. It was two. It was a grand total of two matches that I was involved in. And as much as I enjoyed them, the authorities did not because they were not licensed matches. And so that kind of shut down the early days of Calamity Jayne. Of course, I didn't go by Calamity Jayne back then. I don't know. I don't even remember what I went by. Just, hell, I'm 39. That was a long time ago. That's 20 years ago. But I got out of it because I developed an eye condition. It's called myopic CNV, and it's extremely rare, where it threatens your vision. And I had to have shots in my eye, and I kind of stepped away from wrestling and was worried about being physically involved in the sport at that time. But now I have, after I kind of came back to it and kind of rekindled my love for it and writing, and everybody was like, you write so well. Why don't you do podcasts? Why don't you do, spots? Why don't you do managing? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to get back into it. And that's exactly what happened. So early last year, I got invited on by the Nice Guy Andy podcast. Shout out to Superfly Johnny Lee and Andy. They wanted to have me on. We were going to do the Royal Rumble, which is right around my birthday, and we did like an invite, an open invite for that. and we started doing lives, and we've never looked back since. And I've been invited to manage some successful tag teams, and I'm hoping to do even more of that. Like, I've got my Kentucky wrestling license. Hey, everybody, I have my Kentucky wrestling license. Last year I just had my event staff license, so that's a little different. But this year I actually have my my Kentucky wrestling license, and I'm hoping to kind of do more with that. So,
Wow, that is amazing to hear. Um, so with the writing, can you elaborate on the type of writing you do for wrestling?
yeah, mainly with the podcast, a lot of it's like social media management, and I do a lot of that. But in my head, and I'm sure any wrestling fan can relate to this and completely understand this. You imagine if I were booking for the big shots, like if I were to book for AEW, if I were to book for WWE, if I were to book for NWA or OVW, because in my mind, they are also the big shots, and people count them out a lot. And that hurts my feelings. Um, but I want to see people really embrace that and embrace those storylines, because why are we doing wrestling if we're not enjoying the storyline, if we're not enjoying the media that's being put out there? And that's one of the common complaints that I see between fans. And they're just like, oh, it's not long-term storytelling is kind of a bit of a catchphrase, but I would like to see more long-term storytelling as it applies to main eventers, long-term storytelling as it applies to the female roster. There's so much that can be done and that can be catered to. Fans are smarter now, I feel like, that have been than ever before. People want to discount wrestling fans as, well, they're this, they're that, they're not as bright because they may be from disadvantaged areas. Like, F that. Like, we have some of the smartest people, intelligent people are involved in wrestling and enjoy wrestling. And for me personally, I want to see that catered to. I want to see people acknowledge that the fan is smarter than the average bear, I guess you could say, to stay on point, to stay on brand. They are, and they are smarter than the average bear. And I enjoy tremendously wrestling culture. Sometimes it's toxic, sometimes it's curious, and sometimes it's cumbersome. But for the most part, I feel like most wrestling fans are great at heart, and we enjoy a good storytelling, because where else are you going to find that theatrical enjoyment? Where else are you going to find that theatrical engagement and that athleticism other than wrestling? There's nothing else that encompasses that.
I definitely agree with you. One thing I've always said, especially for us in the South, that's our way of life. We're like you said, we're not stupid, but
No.
we enjoy the drama and the storytelling part of it. And of course, that's just like, no offense to anyone that likes soap operas, but they know it's not real. You don't have to go,
Yeah.
oh, this ain't real. Well, no shit. But
Yeah.
it does not take away from the entertainment and the value that it brings, the enjoyment that it brings to the people who watch that. And that's the same with wrestling fans. And plus, it's definitely different, because I was born in 73. So I got the tail end of the territory days.
Man.
And the thing was, we didn't have a big outlet to look at stuff like today. Like, we was stuck. If you lived in Kentucky, you got, I don't know, Yes, I do. Randy Savage's promotion, his father's promotion.
Angelo Poffo, the Poffo thing.
Exactly.
That was it. That's what you got. And if you wanted to go south, you got Memphis.
That's it.
That was
And,
it.
and so you learn, you got to see different people, and they got to hone their skills in front of different audience, because not all audience are the same everywhere. So that was it. So like today's wrestling, I always say is the new territory days, but better, because if we want to watch if you want to watch something in California, we can look at it on YouTube or a streaming service or a different platform. So for me, it's like, okay, most wrestling fans are involved because of storylines. So don't insult us. If you do something, please be mindful of the common wrestling fan, not just the here 1 minute, gone the next, but us who actually delve deep into it, enjoy, and can go the storylines. And I think that, like you said, is such a major part of wrestling, and it make you come back again and again and again.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like so many people will discount or like frown upon. I've heard it said, even loving to death. I love what I've loved what he's done with the company, but like even Triple H, we're not really catering to anybody that's not a casual. We're more catering to the casual fans, the family audiences. Like, absolutely, by all means, I want you to get the future generations invested in wrestling. Don't stray for that. Please keep doing that. But also for the people that do watch it, for the intellectual entertainment, the people that are involved in those deep storylines, like, don't discount the stuff that they're into, because there are people that watch it religiously every week. And I feel like they try to dumb it. Not that any company really tries to dumb it down, but those storylines do have to be present, because the masterpieces of people that were in the territories that really crafted those storylines that people were invested in, they took the time to do that. And it doesn't really have anything to do with whether kayfabe's dead, or you hear people argue that a lot, and they're like, oh, kayfabe's dead. Well, no kidding, man. No shit. Like, everybody's connected. It's all online for everyone to see.
We wouldn't have a podcast right now.
Exactly. We're having a podcast talking about all of the ins and outs of professional wrestling, but that doesn't mean that kayfabe or the art of that storytelling is dead. It's alive and well, and it's a necessary story point. It's a necessary pinch point for any successful storyline that's going to be told in professional wrestling.
I agree with you 1,000%. You were saying that you just got into the indie side of wrestling. What was one of the biggest things that surprised you about indie wrestling versus the big machine wrestling, as I call it sometimes?
I will say a lot of it has to do with having creative control over your own persona. To me, is a huge draw for somebody that is absolutely eat up with wrestling. I enjoy seeing everybody being able, you don't have a corporate control over your character. To me, like, to go back to the Lita and Kane thing, obviously you can tell that was something that just absolutely wrecked me as a wrestling fan. I'm traumatized by it, but something that has been enjoyable to me is seeing people be in control of their character and work independently and build that persona. Perfect example for me, and of course I'm going to shout out women's wrestling absolutely any opportunity that I can. Huge OVW mark. Please, you will not be able to get me to shut up ever about OVW. I'm a tremendous OVW fan through and through. Perfect example. They brought Lovely Larkin onto their roster. She's so incredibly creative. You have people like her. You have people like Blair Onyx. You have people like Alexis Littlefoot. People that are in charge of their character, their persona. That is refreshing to see. That's not a downside that you don't have 100% creative control over those characters. They should see that as a highlight that those people are able to have control over their persona and how they're portrayed. That to me, as a fan, I'm able to put my faith and my trust in something like that, as opposed to it being tossed over to corporate creative and saying, here you go. Maybe you can make $1 with it. Maybe you can't. And it kind of leaves it up to the individual as to their own success. And that to me is the most exciting and thrilling part of independent wrestling today. I just love it. I love seeing that. And I love seeing, Icon Lee. Icon Lee is our champion, or was our champion for the longest time at Nice Guy Andy. And it pains me to say that he's not the champion anymore. No disrespect to Marty Clay whatsoever. Marty Clay's fine in his own right, but I'm a bit of an Icon Lee mark. And it was a lot of that character building and that social media presence. And I think that that's the new age. That's the new age kayfabe. That's what kayfabe is going to be moving forward. It is going to be an online presence. You have to be a monster. You have to be on top of what and how you are presented online to be successful. And the people that have those successful social media marketing campaigns, those are the people that are successful at the end of the day. And I love to see it. That to me is exciting.
That is super awesome. I think we have a lot of similar thought process on that, because one of the things, once I've 3 years now been somewhat doing this, and one of the things that I love is the development of a character. When people are starting to get it, you can tell something has hit their mind, and you can see the shift in what they're doing, how they're doing it, how they present themselves, how they get themselves out there. It is such an amazing journey. And I always tell people, no matter where you live, there's some independent promotion around you. Take
Absolutely.
the time to go and see them, because what you're probably seeing, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you're going to see your main eventers in these big companies. Go ahead and learn about these people now. Enjoy the build and everything.
Yes.
And it is amazing. Another thing that I love about indie wrestling, it feels like a family affair.
Yes.
I made it a point early this year, that I was going to start going to more independent wrestling, showing up, learning the guys and girls out there doing, and just the last one I went to, the show was great. After the show ended, everybody's getting up. I sat there for about 10, 15 minutes, just sitting and looking at all the people, the wrestlers. It's like a family.
It is.
You got that favorite, you have your favorite family members, then you got the ones you really don't care for, but they family, so you got to be somewhat nice to. And it was, and the main thing that went through my head was, this is why I got into wrestling.
Yes. Because it's so intimate too. Like, and not to say that, WWE or AEW, that they don't draw you in or they don't get you involved to that level, but when it's local, when it's on that smaller scale, like you said, within 100 miles. And I regularly, in my area, I live in Western Kentucky. I live in Auburn, Kentucky. So it's in the western part of the state. It's right on the Kentucky and Tennessee border, right? if I go north 2 hours, I've got badass wrestling. If I go south 2 hours, I've got badass wrestling. It might take me an hour or two, but I can take me and my kid who is also super getting into the wrestling. She's a heel, by the way, just like her mom. And we like to go, and we get so involved with that. But like, the ticket prices are affordable. You can take your kids. You can take all of your kids, no matter how many kids you have. You can take them and have an evening where it's entertainment, and it's not sitting in front of a screen. It's not sitting in front of, the Nintendo Switch, much as I love that too, huge gamer. And it kind of unplugs. You can unplug for a little bit, and it's about that human connection. And when I think about wrestling, and the thing that I love the most about wrestling is that connection where it feels like Greco-Roman theater. You have that athleticism, you have that theater, you have that theatrics about it, you have the suspense, you have that build. And it really hasn't changed that much. It's still that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be blood and guts and gore. Like, no, just absolutely zero disrespect. I have met some tremendous amazing deathmatch wrestlers, especially over the past year, that I admire and love so much. Shout out to Jimmy Controversy, Mickey Knuckles, Angel Metro. Oh my gosh. And that wasn't even a thing that I thought that I liked, like, as far as like, having like the death match and the the kind of the more blood centric, if you will, John Moxley-esque matches. That's absolutely no disrespect for that, because I appreciate and love that too. Like, to me, that harkens back to like the Mick Foley and all of the funk matches, like, and all of the hardcore matches, and Al Snow. Shout out to Al Snow, like probably one of my favorite hardcore legends, and Bob Holly. And to go back and watch those matches, WWE or ECW, like we were talking about Sabu earlier. Oh my gosh, some of the matches that man had. I didn't think that I was into that, but I'm not above watching a hardcore match and it rocking my socks off and being amazed, because it's an art form. It's an art form. It makes you feel something. You feel something for that person. And that's what wrestling is all about, whether you're doing it. And this is another, the Peter Griffin quote, what really grinds my gears? I think about that, and I think about, what really grinds my gears is that people get into our comment section over at Nice Guy Indie Podcast, over on Pro Wrestling World. We've got 400,000 followers on Pro Wrestling World. We've got, 30,000 followers over at Nice Guy Indie Podcast. We have some people that get so ugly and so nasty in the comment section that it really does. It breaks you down. It hurts your feelings, because you see people that are just, they don't appreciate the art form that wrestling is. They don't break it down to that psychological level. And the psychology is what is, to me, that's the meat and potatoes of wrestling. Like, yeah, flips are great. Technical moves are great. You want to do 40 super kicks and Canadian destroyers. Okay, that's cool. But are you really are you connecting with the audience? I've seen people, old timers get up and they're like, not to say that they're old. It's not an insult. That's a good thing. But yeah, but to get up, and I feel that too, because my back hurts and shit. But to get up, we see people and they get up and they have a match and they tell a story, and they might have touched each other 3 or 4 times the whole match. That's a good ass match. Exactly. At the end of the day, all that matters is how did you make people feel?
Exactly. I mean, you hit it right on the head. There's so many different forms of wrestling and different styles. Not everybody is gonna cater to that, but you should be understanding that wrestling has so many different styles. When they say wrestling, it doesn't mean just one particular thing. It just depends on what you like, where you've been raised, what type of wrestling environment you've been around. There's so many different ones. Just like I think of our truth. Our truth is one of the funniest guys out there, but a lot of people don't know that our truth was a world heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
He can do that type of wrestling, but this is his niche. There's
Yes.
so much different styles, so you just have to find what pleases you. And people, I've and it's funny to me being 51 years old. I still catch attitudes. I still be mad about things. But the thing I've started to learn and start doing is if you don't like what is in front of you, leave, turn your TV off. You nobody's making you do this. So why are you sitting there trying to tear me down because it's something I like? You don't like it, don't watch it.
There
And
we have so many programming options. Like it blows my mind because and you probably too, like you remember having to call into a 1-800 number with a credit card, which someone may or may not have, for like 60 or 70 damn dollars to pay for a pay-per-view, a
oh
true
yes.
pay-per-view. Pay-per-view. You paid per view of it. Hell no, you ain't gonna go back and watch it. And that's why everybody had VHS tapes
But
so that we could record it.
right,
Exactly.
I
That was
I
our
still
whole
got them,
ECW collection.
man. And that's the thing. Hell, I have a wrestling magazine collection. It started in '85, and I bought these religiously because the internet wasn't the thing then.
No.
Up into 2000s. And that's how I got my information on different wrestlers, different promotions. And it was like, wow, one of the biggest treats when I was younger, one of the biggest treats I used to enjoy. I have two brothers and a sister. All three of them lived in Atlanta. I love going to Atlanta because they had a 6-hour program with different wrestling from around the world.
Man.
That was like the greatest treat ever for me. And it's like we have this. We have this at home. You don't have to go to many places. Hell, you don't even have to spend money if you don't want to. You got YouTube. You got places like we have an app where we have all types of wrestling. We have documentaries. Hell, we got wrestling cartoons for the kids. We do on Saturdays. It's just so much out there that there's no excuse unless you just being lazy.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like that's why we did the app. There's other apps out there that has different stuff. It's there. You just have to make the time and search. And for
Exactly.
any true wrestling fan, they're gonna do it. So
You said something that tickled me as a mom, and I just gotta throw this out there. You basically said we have wrestling at home. We got wrestling at home. Yeah, we do. There's at any given point we can watch wrestling. Like, and for me, like, okay, so growing up, I was eat up with Medusa / Alundra Blaze. Shout out to her and Bull Nakano because it was like early 90s. Man, if I'd have known about Stardom or Marigold, in the mid 90s, it would have been on. Like, that's so, we're spoiled as wrestling fans, but then you like the international wrestling community, it can be absolutely toxic. And man, I gotta tell you, between the comment section, not everybody, but between the comment section at Pro Wrestling World and Nice Guy Andy Podcast, some of the messages that we get on matches, like, this is an absolute cesspool. Like, why would anybody enjoy this? We get some of the most negative comments, but we are trying to work on that, because ultimately at the end of the day, like, we want people that work with us and associate with us to feel more comfortable, and we want them to feel involved and not feel like they're being attacked. Because wrestling, I got news for you, like, wrestling's one of the few holdouts, and I can say this confidently as a woman, as a moderately attractive woman, I can say that people will say damn near anything to get a shock value type of response out of other people on the internet. They will say damn near anything, and that's all well and fine, but shock value does not equal value. And when they come on there with some of the craziness that they're talking about, that's not the future of wrestling. And the days of people being like bigoted or ugly or sexist and hateful the way that they are, like, perfect example, people started talking about, who was it that left? The left WWE, Cora Jade, talking about being body shamed. Absolutely gorgeous, beautiful woman. And then here you have, 40, 50 neckbeards in a comment section of 300 plus comments where people are just saying, well, if she should have got with the program, she should have lost weight. Who is to say that she needed to lose weight? That was the reason she was being body shamed. And if she is, that's ridiculous, because you can look at the independent circuit at any point and see women of all shapes and body sizes, and even on the professional level, that are successful. And it just boggles the mind. Like, it's shifting. There's a definite shift, and the wrestling community very frequently cited as one of the most toxic fan bases, But here's my thing. I'm a mother of a 7-year-old. I'm a mother of a 7-year-old daughter on top of that. And to me, it's my responsibility to take up space. I'm never going to pull the I'm a female card. Look at me, involve me, and to play that card. But do I want my child to feel comfortable if she wants to be a wrestling fan in the future? Absolutely. Do I feel like it's my personal responsibility as a wrestling personality to make sure that she feels comfortable, and that any of her little girlfriends that she plays with on the playground, and they want to play wrestling, that they feel comfortable in this environment? Absolutely. And, I'm not saying, hey, make way because we're females. No, I'm just saying, we're fans. We deserve this just as much as anybody else. And I just kind of feel like that's the way of the future. But it's really also really cool to see that supported. I feel like that's definitely supported between, and I'm not a tribalist. That's a common phrase that we all like to throw around the wrestling community. I'm not a tribalist whatsoever, and I enjoy any and all types of wrestling as long as it's enjoyable and it's good, and I'll critique any of it. I don't care. I'm not getting paid. I'm not getting paid by anybody. So I'm always gonna give my honest opinion, but I do like to see, people from across the board being able to join. There's different strokes. It's all different strokes for different folks. Different people like different kinds of wrestling, and we are lucky enough and blessed enough to live in a time where we can seek that out. Not only can we seek that out, but we can seek other fans that enjoy what we enjoy. And I think that's the beauty of it. Like, hell, I can get on Triller and find 20 plus different, wrestling programs that I enjoy and watch them. And any given weekend, I can go to within a 2-hour drive. And that's just because I'm in Kentucky. Hell, anybody that's closer is super lucky, in my opinion. But, I can go 2 hours and be at a top quality professional wrestling show. I even want to call them indies because a lot of these guys are working professional wrestling shows. It's magic.
Yeah.
We're so lucky, and we don't even realize it. People get so caught up, and I hated when they did that half-line spot, or when they bled that much, or they did this, or they did that. Shit, man, just enjoy it. Like, I hate to be like the just enjoy wrestling crowd, but that's true. Like,
Yeah.
shut the hell up and enjoy wrestling.
That's it. One of the things that I am very big on is women's wrestling, and
Same.
I'm one of the guys that the last year before they came with the mid card titles, I kept saying, give them mid card titles. I'm like,
Me
it's
too.
it's the stupidest thing that the women only have the world title. Then it's like, come on now, you stop treating them as a sideshow and treat them as equal. The
Absolutely.
storylines. Now we got the WWE came with the mid card titles. Well, now that's great, but you got to have storylines for them. You can't just
Back it up.
Yeah, you can't just throw it out there and just think people are gonna like it or pay attention. You got to use the storylines. I'm always been insulted as a man listening to, oh, well, these women are fighting because she stole some makeup out of her bag. I'm like, what kind of idiotic, stupid? You're insulting the wrestlers. You're insulting the fans. Come on now. If you can sit there and come up with the bloodline storyline, damn it, you can come up with something meaningful and sensible for women. And
Absolutely. Man.
and I love seeing all the different women out there doing their thing. Like one in particular that has been overlooked, irritates the world out of me. She's had one of the greatest title runs, is Athena.
Man.
It's so ridiculous that the only time they have put her on AEW TV is to lose to Monet. And I'm like, the storyline has been great. It's been building. This is what I need to see. This is what I want to see.
But they have got to strike while that iron is hot, man. Like, they're doing such a discredit to her because she is, and you nailed it on the head. Athena is, I would say, probably top 3 for me personally. That does not get the credit that she needs, man. Like, she's astounding, and she works, and she's good on the mic. She's incredible in the ring, and her persona and who she is as a person, which is a very solidly discounted. A lot of times people will be like, well, if they're good on the mic, they're good in the ring, we can kind of overlook whether they're a good person or not. Man, she's an outstanding person. She's an outstanding role model for our girls. Like, why are you not putting 2 and 2 together? Tony, fucking do something, brother. Like, just do something with her. And, like, bring her to the top. Yeah, she's outstanding and has been. And that's somebody 1,000% that needs to be featured more is Athena. Man, that was a source. I'm sure everybody could tell that was a bit of a sore spot for both of us because we got really super animated. We're like, damn it, let's talk about Athena. And that's true. That's 1,000% true.
So for the first time doing this and going out to indie wrestling, I met a young lady, and even to this day, when we see each other, she is so respectful. Well, just the sweetest person. Her sister is also, and that is the NWA Women's Champion, Kenzie Page.
Man.
Kenzie, the first time we met, I had my podcast shirt on. I was like, yeah, I'm starting. She's like, oh, I cut a promo for you, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
It's like, sure. And at the time, she was the tag team champ, and she stood there with me because she's like, yeah, come on, yeah, I want you in the shot, because I was just gonna let her do it. She's like, no, come on, and she cut me a promo, and almost every time we see each other, she will cut a promo for me.
Man.
No questions asked. And like I said, her sister, her father, all of them are just such sweet people. And I just, again, with women's wrestling, and it's come a long way, a long way. But it's I needed to keep going. I need pay-per-views that end with women's being the main thing. I need AEW to stop putting on one women's match every week. I need two. Maybe hell, make a whole week. I mean, the whole thing women's matches. Be consistent and giving the time and energy, because everything it carries. Also, I'm not a big fan of men wrestling women, because it's just one of the things I don't necessarily care for.
Yeah. And I like when China did it, they made it interesting. They made it like a novelty, and I don't want to reduce it to that. I mean, not in any way, shape, or form reducing China to novelty, because in my opinion, she should have her own Hall of Fame induction independently. But yeah, you don't have to do that. You have an entire women's roster that's not being utilized. Why would you do men and women match, men versus women match, and then not utilize your existing female roster
and make it make sense? And I'm good. I'm one of the few people, I think, that at first I was super upset that Tessa Blanchard won the Impact title. Then I looked at it and thought about it. I'm like, okay, it's not the end of the world, but now you got a woman is the Impact champion. You have a women's title. What's next? Can a man go and challenge for that title?
Yeah.
And not that I think that I just think if you have that, you keep it at that, because then you'll start mixing and certain things won't add up.
Yeah.
That's just me. And but with all that being said, I'm always willing to see things being tried, being put out there. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, people like it. I take my own advice. When she won, I just didn't watch Impact. Not that I didn't like her. It didn't make sense for me.
No.
In that concept, because she was wrestling, defending the titles. Then she turned around and had a shot at the women's title. I'm like, well, she's the heavyweight champion. Why would she want the women's title? Make it
nonsensical. Make it make sense. That is the catchphrase of all time. Like in TNA, I felt like recently, and which I'm tickled to death. They've got the Hardys. Apparently, X-Pac's signing over, going to be doing work with TNA, which I'm the biggest X-Pac mark in history. I'm tremendous Sean Waltman fan. I did not get to see him at Squared Circle Expo because, as luck would have it, I got COVID 2 damn days before I was supposed to be at Squared Circle Expo. So if you were hoping to see me there, I apologize wholeheartedly that I got COVID and didn't want to give it to my favorite superstars, but hell, I had the Medusa, the Woman That Should Be King book ready to sign. I paid $60 out of pocket that was just completely wasted. That I had a X-Pac photo op, professional photo op. I was ready to go. I brought my sensational Sherry costume. I was even going to enter the costume contest. Had never done that before, by the way. I do not claim to be a cosplayer by in any sense of the word. I think it's super cool though, and I was ready.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but since you brought this up, I have to be truly honest. The first time I saw you, I thought, "Holy shit, who is this champ?" You were. It was. I was blown away. I'm no lie, and not just because I have you over. I was blown away each time I've seen you. You always on point with your everything, and it's the God honest truth. You definitely put the time and energy into making people know you're in the building.
Thank you. And man, I appreciate that so much because it's funny, like, we talked about like part of the whole purpose of doing this was like letting people know what got me into wrestling. And I was always a smart kid, but I was into video games and I was into wrestling. And that was not at the time, that was not a great way to make friends. If we're all being honest, and if you've been there, and I was an awkward kid, and sometimes I would elaborate on things that I was interested in, mainly gaming and wrestling, and not everybody's a receptive audience for that. And getting into this, like the whole Calamity Jayne thing came about because, hell, I probably couldn't even tell you. I probably had some dorky, like, run-of-the-mill wrestling name, the 2 matches that I did do, and then to get away from it and become like a mom and, settle down. And I did graphic design work. Pretty good graphic designer. I've done all kinds of stuff. Professional face painter. I had my own professional face painting business for several years. And loved that. And I still do enjoy doing that, but I stepped away from it because I had the opportunity to work with the Nice Guy Andy podcast and pro wrestling world on a professional level. And that kind of changed the trajectory of things for me. But the reason I throw all that out there is because I'm 39. I just turned 39 in February, and I have just now started to step into my own. And like last year was the first time that I had been really near a wrestling ring as a performer. I did two gigs last year. One was at Tennessee Championship Wrestling. Shout out Johnny Morton and his team there. Outstanding group of people. They wanted me to come in and help these guys essentially win the title. We may have used nefarious reasons for that. Eventually, I need to post the footage for that because I don't think I ever did. But escorted them to the ring as Calamity Jayne, and we had a hell of a time. We do-si-doed, and people were just on fire. And then to come back, and then during the summer, worked with Terry England over at Ultimate Championship Wrestling and Brandon Wilson at Triple Crown Wrestling. 2 of my personal favorite people. Terry England, longest running professional wrestling promoter in the state of Kentucky. Outstanding. Knows more about the business than most people have forgot. He asked us to come in and just do a exhibition match, which we touched on this earlier, and I'll get back to that. But kind of coming in and doing a bit of a comedy bit. I think comedy, when you think about the theatrics of wrestling, the athletics of wrestling, and to do a comedy heavy bit. I am very proud to say that we at the Nice Guy Andy podcast in our comment section were credited with ruining the sport of professional wrestling for everybody, and that's a that is that's a very high accolade, and we're very proud of that over the podcast. But to say that we ruined wrestling not only for everybody that was in attendance, but for the entire country and maybe even internationally, that's something that's important to me, personally. But no, that was a lot of fun. And so to be a part of that, to be a part of those two events last year, and I never want to discount, to me, I'll tell you another thing that really got me into wrestling, aside from my brother, but as I grew up, and it's still, I have to watch it at least once a year. I don't think I've watched it within the past year, so I'm kind of coming up on that. Man on the Moon, about Andy Kaufman and his whole feud with Jerry the King Lawler. That, to me, that was genius, because I'd done some comedy work, theater work up until that point. And then to see that was like, wow, like you pulled the wool over people's eyes. Like you made them feel something. And to me, that was the best of the best. And anytime I think about wrestling, like I think it takes all types. I think it takes feeling all the feels. It takes feeling everything across the board. And when I think about really good wrestling, of course, like I still love to go back and watch Memphis wrestling and watch a lot of the territory matches, because I feel like I've kind of, I feel like people tell me that I'm older because I was around for the Attitude Era, but like I like to go back and watch territory matches because we have that luxury now. How amazing is it that at any time, if we want to be like, hey, I want to watch, Vern Gagne and go back and watch a match of his, or I want to watch a Nick Bockwinkel promo at any time, I can do that. I can go back and I can watch the Mr. Perfect match that I watched with a sour look on my face when I was a kid because I couldn't stand it because he was heel. But he did such a great job. But now that I'm in the business, I have a different understanding of that match entirely. Man, that shit just lights me up. Like there's never a shortage of things to enjoy in the sport. I feel like we're ultimately spoiled as modern day fans, but we have all these different opportunities, but I feel like wrestling's the best that it's ever been. There will be people that will entirely disagree with me. It may not be on the technical submission holds, adhering to the rules 100% of the time that people may expect of old school wrestling. But at the same time, I feel like it's the most entertaining. It's the most internationally developed and is expanding on that. And I love that. I love anytime that they go to Europe and they have a huge PLE and WWE. I love seeing that, they picked up AAA. I love seeing there's a huge, and I'm going to make this prediction. There's a huge and super under-recognized wrestling community in India and Pakistan that's just amazing. The dedication of the fans there, and I'm hoping that in the future they lean into that and they embrace that. I'm just excited about wrestling. There's just so much good stuff. And I'm sorry guys, I'm eating Cajun peanuts. I don't know if you guys are fans of gas station Cajun peanuts. This is Bear Society, sponsored by Old Peanuts. It's absolutely not. Please don't.
Well, what I would say is, see, we have a lot more in common than what you really realize, because I'm sitting here with my peanut.
Get out. Get out. This is a history. This is a groundbreaking moment. The rest of history. Everybody that loves wrestling and is knowledgeable about wrestling eats peanuts because
there you go.
Just saying.
You know, I'm gonna tell you something that being 51, and I've watched wrestling all my life. I couldn't do what the athletes could do. Obviously, I never thought I would even be in the business of wrestling. So when I got the opportunity, the first thing that always came across my mind is be respectful,
Yes.
because I'm getting to live a dream out, and people will actually listen and follow my recommendations, my stories, or whatever. So I've always been real understanding that. But one of the biggest things that happened to me, we were doing a podcast, and all of a sudden, and I think because I don't know the difference, it was either a Japanese or a Chinese fan commented, and it was from overseas, and we're looking at like, did you see that? Whoa. Then we got Australia people like, wait a minute, they're ahead of what? And for me, it always makes me be really thankful
Oh,
and very understanding when I had people asking me for autograph. What?
yes.
I'm not what? And when a wrestler comes up to me and tells me he wants to get a picture with me, I'm so humbled and proud to carry wrestling like I am, that people understand that I do. I'm very respectful and everything. And I say all that to come up with the question: when did you have your oh shit moment like that?
Oh man. Um, it was it was probably last year. It was probably when I did the event with Tennessee Championship Wrestling, because not only did I have people at that event be like, "Are you Calamity Jayne? Are you with you do stuff on Pro Wrestling World? You do stuff on Nice Guy Andy?" And that was cool. Um, but it was when we had come out, and it was these two guys that had wrestled together, Hillbilly Mike, and I apologize, I forget the other gentleman's name. I don't think that they're a tag team anymore, but um, the story behind the scenes is that Hillbilly Mike's mother had gotten cancer, and that Hillbilly Mike had been wrestling for years, but that he had not secured a belt in that time frame, but that it was going to mean so much to him to be able to get that title. And so I didn't realize until I got there that that's how deep that storyline went. And they wanted me to wrestle as a face, or not a wrestle as a face, but manage as a face against Lucky P. Larson, who's till the day I die probably one of my favorite people in the business. And that was my first time being able to work alongside another manager, and he's going full blown heel, and I'm coming out there as the face and helping win the match, and that just the whole build and the storyline and getting the crowd so worked up and feeling that energy for me was a huge huge moment. But just to have a little girl come up to me and say, "Will you take a picture with me?" And since then, the Nice Guy Any podcast, a lot of people don't realize this. I don't like to parade around a lot, but I mean, maybe every once in a while I might make a TikTok video with it. But I do have the Nice Guy Andy Women's Championship belt, and this is something pretty exclusive that I'll share with you guys. Is that it's my hope to eventually come back to and wrestle again soon, and actually have that as something that I want to do outside of just managing, because yeah, I'm managing, and but in my mind, you know, I'm 39. I feel like I'm, you know, 25. You know, mind, heart, body, and everything. Like, I still want to get back to that because to me, I didn't get to expand on my in ring. And the whole reason that I got the title was because we were kind of coming towards the end of our fair season. You know how everybody does county fairs and stuff. During the summertime, it's a huge deal. You know, they pass belts a couple of times between people. Our plan initially was to put it on somebody before the fair season, but we didn't have a Nice Guy Andy Women's Podcast Champion. And I bust my tail to make sure that, you know, I do all the social media management. I do human resources. I do merch. And, you know, I wear a lot of hats. And the guys surprised me, and I didn't realize that we were going to do this, that they did it on air where they awarded me with the Nice Guy Women's Podcast Championship. Well, me being a huge wrestling mark, I'm like, well, shit, you know, now I've got a belt. I probably need to defend it at some point because that's the storyline that people want.
Right.
I frequently, like, if we're out somewhere, I'll say, you know, I'm the champion of running my mouth, which is basically the whole reason that I have it. That's the whole reason that I have the belt. But on a serious note, I am, and this is pretty exclusive, is that I am working towards building myself up and getting my stamina up again. I've lost probably about 20 pounds the past 2 months, and working and doing conditioning. And I may or may not be working with somebody to get myself ring ready again at damn near 40 years old. But I would love, and it would be an honor for me to get back in the ring, because I feel like anytime, like, we go to events, and like, these little girls, you know, like, see that belt, they see that pink belt, and they see this powerful woman that's not just kind, but that's also strong and setting an example. And that, for me, that's always that moment, is, you know, having these little girls come over and ask for, like, autographs, or can you take a picture with us? And they see that belt and they're like, oh, that's cool. You know, even if I'm not involved in that match, even if I'm not involved in that particular event, I'm just there to sell merch, you know, having my belt with me and being able to talk to him, man, it's just, there's nothing like it. And so that's a personal goal that I have. And I don't talk a lot about that when we're doing the podcast, because we really just usually don't have time. But that is something that I'm actively working on. And in the past, I have traditionally played a heel and come out and been like, you know, because it takes a certain person to have that thick skin.
Right.
To have that heel, thick skin, and quick wit, and come out and say, or, you know, respond to terrible things that people might say to you. And for me, it's, I don't know, I could see both ways. Calamity Jayne's kind of an anti-heroine. She's not really a bad guy. She's not really a good guy either. It's kind of like Han Solo and Star Wars. If I had to compare it to anybody, it's just, I'm going to make the best decision given that time, you know. And I think that's another thing that's cool about modern wrestling too, is, you know, having characters that are deep, that have a lot of depth to them. And people enjoy that. People enjoy seeing that. And to me, that's what Calamity Jayne is you just really never know what the hell she's going to do. Just depends on the situation.
Well, all I can say is I hope I get an invitation to that wrestling card, no matter where it is, so I can be there to support you. It's been, like you said, it's a great honor to be in the wrestling business the way we are. And I had the oh shit moment. Also, I can't believe I forgot to talk about this, where I had to actually got in the ring, and and the matches, they had all cage matches,
Oh,
and,
no.
and I got the chance to get the cage match, and oh my god, when I came through the curtain, I was like, I see where wrestlers get tunnel vision. I was so hyper. I didn't see nothing but a little tunnel.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy crap. I couldn't even hear I heard when I walked out, I heard my music. I didn't hear it anymore. And it was just amazing. So anytime I see wrestlers get to talk, I say, I understand why it's a drug for you all. I
Absolutely.
definitely do. If I was in the shape, maybe I would try it, but I'm not. And look, and for you, I would say this: anytime you get the feeling like you can't do this because of your age, think of Diamond Dallas Page.
And that's exactly it. He is one of my drive. He's one of the reasons that I did this because growing up, like I remember Diamond Dallas Page being cocky. Of course, like I ate up WCW, and that's a whole other conversation. We could talk about WCW for hours probably, but the fact that he came back to wrestling so late in the game, and he was like what 38, 39 when he
Yes.
really even took off. That inspires me and drives me more than anything. And I'll tell you another thing that really drives me, inspires me, is that if you're a wrestling fan, you're watching this. One of my big driving forces is that I feel like the role of manager, the reason that the role of manager is not really as prominent is because people don't typically they typically don't write as in-depth storylines like we talked about. And a lot of people are reluctant to pay or hire a manager because it's still additional talent and they might see that as a detriment, and that's not to say that promoters are cutting corners, but you have to treat everything like a business, so that's respectable. But one of my goals, more so even than wrestling, like I said, I wanted to defend the title, just for the sake of defending it and making sure that it's protected at all times because that's our nice guy Andy podcast title. But for me, one of my big goals in the business is to elevate female managers because in my mind, there has not been everybody knows the Sensational Sherry skit that I did. I paid homage to Sherry. And in my mind, she was the total package. And she's in a lot of people's top 5 managers of all time because she lived it. Like, yeah, she was a great wrestler too. Like, don't get me wrong, but she succeeded in being a manager and she drew people in. And I don't think that there have been valets. And that's not a diss to any valets. Like, hey, I love to look at a pretty woman just like anybody else. But to combine the looks and the brains and the know-how and the cunning, like Sherry had, I think that that's something that's a niche that's not really being filled in wrestling right now. And Calamity Jayne, in my mind, is that's who she is. So she's like a second coming of Sherry. She's like a Heyman in heels, if you will. As an anti heroine, you just really never know which way she's going to go. But she's going to watch out for her team. So like that's something that I really hope that I get to explore in the coming years. So
I love that. You're definitely right. Management is a lost art form. But I do have to say this. This is the second time you didn't invoke, if you will, Dusty Rose. So I love that too. So
I've got some TikToks planned using some Dusty Road sound. Y'all stay tuned for that because that's gonna happen.
well, I just again thank you for taking the time. And I do want to mention something now, and I hope you don't get mad. I want to tell people about our first interaction and stuff.
It's not fine.
And what happened was there was a misunderstanding between us, and I will say this: when it happened, everybody has their feelings and stuff. But I will say this: when the next time Calamity Jayne seen me, she was a woman and came up to me to apologize. And me being me, I was just like, it's water under the bridge. We're good. There's no problems. And for and the reason I bring this up to let people know, wrestling, you can have a misunderstanding, you may not like some whatever, but you can get past it and move forward, because in the end, the thing that puts us together is our love for professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
And again, I thanked you that day. I would thank you again for that. Thank you for coming on my show. Man, I appreciate it. You have an open invitation to come back. If you want to go down some WCW storylines, I'm a big WCW mark, NWA mark, so we could do that. As you can tell by the titles behind me, I'm definitely a big mark. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you too, because like all it was just a big, like it's another lost art nowadays is that if people feel a certain way, or if a lot of times if people have disagreements with each other, they'll express it and they'll be kind of like passive aggressive. And it wasn't anything between me and you personally. Like, we had never met. But you have like, people deal with things passive aggressively, and they might talk about it in passing to other people, and it builds and builds, and then other people have opinions about it. And something that I'm not short on is direct communications. I go to the source, and I'm not above just being like, hey, what's going on? And I'm so glad that like we connected, and that me and the Wrestling Society Network connected and kind of built a bond between ourselves and the Nice Guy Andy podcast and Pro Wrestling World, because like that's the thing, like we don't want there to be any bad blood. We want everybody to get together and watch wrestling and like.
Yes, Lord.
I love
it. Like you said, just shut up and enjoy wrestling.
And that is, and I'm so thankful for that. And I appreciate you guys so much and for having me on. And it's just an honor. I get up every single day, and there's not been a lot of times in my life that I've been able to do this where I've just been able to get up in the morning and be like, man, I love what I do every single day. And it just gets better all the time. And I'm just thankful to be a part of it, man. I can't wait until we have another event where I'll probably talk your head off. You'll probably be ready to get rid of me. But the next time that we have a match or something together that we can go to, man, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely. Well, please give social shout outs. Give it all. I want people to follow you and to get to see what you bring to the wrestling world. So go ahead and give your shout outs, plugs, anything. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, I just want to say a special thanks, of course, the place that gave me my start, that believed in me, and it was our owner's birthday the other day. I just want to say shout out to George over at Pro Wrestling World and our team there, Noah, Stefan, Travis. We appreciate you guys so much. And then, of course, the Nice Guy Andy podcast, Andy, Superfly Johnny Lee, my buddy Sean, my buddy Joe, aka Big Beard Dudley. You guys are like a family. You're like brothers to me, and I love and respect all of y'all. And I'm just so glad that we get to do this all the time. I want to give a shout out to Terry England over at Ultimate Championship Wrestling, who's been kind enough to take me under his wing and kind of give me some pointers and some feedback. Man, just a shout out to Triple Crown Wrestling. Obviously, I can't mention Ultimate Championship Wrestling without mentioning Triple Crown Wrestling. All my buddies over at, my Calamity Jayne page, and we've got some. I just got to say this real quick before we sign off. Like, we've got some amazing things and changes that are taking place over at the Nice Guy Andy podcast. That's going to be a lot more viewer centric. We've got some really exciting, some really cool projects coming up, and I can't talk at length about them. That I'm going to be heading up personally and managing. Just so excited. I'm just so thankful. Like, I get giddy just talking about it, but I'm just so thankful for everybody that comes to the matches. If you come and you pay for an independent wrestling ticket to any of the matches locally and in your area, bless you and thank you. Like, we're just, you guys are the ones that keep it going, and the devoted fans, the ones that come out, that make signs, that have a favorite, that are vocal about it on Facebook. You guys are the lifeblood of everything that we do on a daily basis, and I'm just so thankful. And shout out to NWA, of course, and OVW, which anytime that I get a chance to plug them, I do, because to me, as a mega fan, like you said, like, that's almost even more enjoyable, seeing them succeed and build and build up. Is just, it's like icing on the cake, and that makes me super excited. I'm just happy to be where I'm at. So
Well, again, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And again, you have an open invitation. We definitely will be doing this again.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we appreciate you. Everybody have a good night. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for joining Calamity Jayne and Professor Bear at A Bear's Thoughts. And
Guys,
appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you, and thank you once again for following me and enjoying the show. And we're gone. Thank you, and definitely come back to the force, because we're definitely going to have more. So thank you.
All right, everybody have a good night. Take care.